Hi, everybody. It's Kyle here for Geek Girl's Guide podcast number 33. Just wanted to give a breakdown, as we talked about in the show, about how I use iTunes and how I have my computer set up to stream it throughout my household. So, as we talked about, I don't have a cable setup. I don't really have television per se, but I do have a lot of movies ripped, and I use the new version of the Apple TV to move my media around. So, as you'll see on my desktop here, I've got my media spread out over two drives. The first one here is the rugged 500 gigabyte hard drive. So it's a LaCie product and it's very durable. You'll see that orange padded bumper around the outside. And the one thing that I like most about this is that it has lots of different inputs. So it's got FireWire 800, FireWire 400, and USB 2. So it works with all the computers that I use, whether it's at home, work, and it's compatible. Those use FireWire, for example. And then if I use it on another computer, I can use USB 2. So it's very, very slick. So that's the 500 gigabyte hard drive I use for my music. So that's the rugged 500 gigabyte drive there on the desktop. The other one is a bare Western Digital drive. So it would be something that you would put in a tower, for example. But what I have is what's called a drive sled, which is something that you can put those bare drives into on its own. And that is this guy, the Kingwin Dual Bay 3-inch SATA drive. Now, it sounds kind of confusing, but basically you'll see there's slots there. You just buy the bare hard drive and you drop it in there and you connect that to your computer and it then displays that on the desktop. So I can have two drives in there if I so choose, and both of those will show up on my desktop. Right now, I just have the one in there. It's a 1 terabyte Western Digital drive. The cool thing about this is that you can buy whatever's cheap. You don't need to get an expensive enclosure. You can just find cheap bare drives and put those in there, and they work really, really well. So I have my music on the rugged 500 gigabyte drive, and the reason that I don't have that on just one computer is that I move this drive around from computer to computer. So I have my home laptop, I have a home iMac as well, and I have a work MacBook Pro, and I can move that drive from computer to computer so that wherever I go, I've got my whole iTunes music library with me, which is really nice. So when I'm at work, I get to listen to whatever I want, and when I'm at home, I can listen to whatever I want. So the music is very portable. Now, the movies are on that drive that's just in my house because I'm really not going to be watching movies at work. You know, that's just a home thing. So I have those on those two drives. Now, I've got iTunes open here as well, so what we're going to be looking at here is the library area. So you can see music, movies, TV shows, etc. I'm going to hide that for a moment, and I'm going to take this folder right here, which is actually a CD that has been ripped. So it's an AC Newman CD, The Slow Wonder. So I'm going to click and drag, go over to iTunes. Now you'll see in the library area, when you drop that there, it will choose where it's going to go. So it can tell that it's music files, so it will drop that there. Now you'll see there's a little plus sign. So the way that I have my iTunes set up is that it manages everything if I tell it to. So basically, when I'm just dragging and dropping and holding it there, it's going to copy it into its own file structure. So when I let go, you'll see in the display screen it will copy things over. So it's adding files, processing. And then eventually, once it's done with that, you'll see that in the library. So it'll be at the top. It's now copying the files over. Now it's actually, while the files were originally on the desktop, it will move them over into its own place in the iTunes directory. And you have to tell it to do that. I think it's set up to do that by default to manage things on its own. So now you'll see right here, AC Newman. So that is now copied over. So that was originally on the desktop. Now if I do Shift-Command-R, which shows the file in the Finder, you'll see that it is now in the structure that iTunes sets up. So iTunes Media, Music, AC Newman, and then the name of the album, The Slow Wonder. So most things in iTunes, you want it to do that. You want it to maintain that structure because that way it takes care of things on its own. The way that I do movies is a little bit different. Because I have these two drives and I want them to be on their own, and because movies are so big, I don't want the movies to be on the same drive as my music because it just takes up too much space. So that's why I have two drives like this. So as you can see here, I have Wall-E, which is a movie that I ripped with Handbrake. There are some great tutorials on Handbrake out there. It's a little bit confusing when you first look at it, but basically all that you would do is pick a preset that you use. I use the universal preset so that it works with my phone, my iPad, and the Apple TV. It works with everything that iTunes can support, basically. There are specific presets for particular devices, so if you just are going to watch movies on your iPad, or if you're just going to watch them on their iPhone, that will customize it just to that screen size, but the universal one has worked best for me. So I've ripped this movie down from the disc to this file. So it's an M4V, which is a movie file. So similar to the music, I'm going to start clicking and dragging it, and I'm going to tab over to iTunes. Now you'll see here I have the plus sign, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Option key down. Now you see if I press it down, the plus sign goes away. I'll let go. Now the plus sign is there. So what I'm doing is when I'm holding the Option key down, I'm telling it to reference where it's going to be. Now, I don't necessarily want to do that from the desktop, so I'm going to add one more step here. So I'm going to cancel this for the moment. I'm going to go into my 1 terabyte drive, and I'm going to copy this to my movies folder. So this really could be in one place already. You know, had I planned a little bit better, I probably would have already had it there, but I wanted to just have everything in one place. So what it's doing is it's copying that over from my laptop, from the hard drive on the laptop, the desktop, onto that 1 terabyte drive. So that'll just take a moment here, and we'll go in and we'll find that once it's copied. And the reason that I do this is that I have all these movies on one location on this hard drive. So this iTunes Movies folder is where all my movies are placed. iTunes sees where those are because of how I copy that, and I'll show you that in a moment. Let's sort by name here so we can find it easily. You can see it just about done. Just a few more seconds, sorry about the delay. All right, and there we go. So now we have WALL-E copied over to my 1 terabyte hard drive in the iTunes Movies folder. Now I'm going to click and drag it, and again switch over to iTunes. And now I don't want it to copy into the iTunes directory, I want to reference it. So when I hold the Option key down, it will reference that and leave it in the same location that it started at. So I'm basically telling iTunes, you are going to see this as a movie, but I want it to stay where I listed it to begin with. So I will let go, and iTunes will process that. That might take a couple moments. Now if I go over to Movies, I'm sorted by name, type W, now you can see WALL-E is there. So again, if I do Shift-Command-R, which is Show in Finder, now you'll see it here, again, in this 1 terabyte drive. So if I had not held down Option, if I had just copied it over, then it would have created a new directory, much like that music did, but this way I can have things kind of spread out in the drives that I want to. So it's a little bit more complicated, but it also adds a lot of flexibility so that you can have your music where you want it to be, you can have your movies where you want it to be, so that whatever computer you're on, everything can access that in an easy fashion. So that's how I manage things in iTunes. Again, it may seem a little bit confusing with additional steps, but once you get used to finding your presets in Handbrake and finding the drives where you want it to be, everything just works transparently. So when you have iTunes running, and you have your Apple TV running, for example, or you've got an iOS device that's using home sharing with the new update, the 4.3 update, everything can be accessed through this iTunes. It doesn't know, the Apple TV doesn't know what drive they're on, it's just everything is handled through iTunes, so it's managed that way. So it's pretty slick. That's it. Thanks. Good luck.